Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Indian forces have martyred 4 more civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The troops conducted cordon and search operations in Pulwama and Kulgam districts. This comes as Kashmiris observe the 5th martyrdom anniversary of freedom fighter Burhan Wani. Russia, Iran and Turkey have condemned Israel's military incursions into Syria, calling them a violation of sovereignty. The trio issued a joint statement after the 16th round of the Astana talks in Kazakhstan's capital, Nur-Sultan. The guarantor nations vowed to continue to cooperate in Syria to defeat ISIS and other militant groups. Afghan forces have retaken control of a western provincial capital stormed by the Taliban a day earlier. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said hundreds of fresh troops have been redeployed to the region. It said some fighting was continuing on the fringes of Kalai-No, capital of Badghis province. Brazil has reported more than 1,600 COVID-19 deaths and over 54,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 24 more people have died, while nearly 1,700 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and has infected over 185 million others. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Indian forces have martyred 4 more civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The civilians were targeted during a military operation in Pulwama and Kulgam districts. The authorities have also suspended internet services in these areas. Rights groups say the Indian occupying forces have killed at least 384 Kashmiris since August 2019. Pakistan has paid tribute to the Kashmiri freedom fighter Burhan Wani on his 5th martyrdom anniversary. Indian forces martyred Wani in a fake encounter in Kokanag area of Islamabad district in 2016.
In a tweet, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India should know that it cannot quell the Kashmiris' independence movement through its occupying forces and state-sponsored terrorism. He said Indian atrocities lead to the birth of more brave Kashmiri fighters like Wani. Meanwhile, Pakistani political and Hurriyat leaders gathered in Islamabad to pay tribute to Wani. During the seminar, the leaders reiterated their commitment to the people of Kashmir in their fight for freedom. Governor of all parties Hurriyat Conference, Sayyid Faiz Naqshbandi, said Burhan Wani will remain an important part of the liberation struggle for Kashmiris.
Shaheed Burhan Wani was an important commander of the freedom movement. Actually, he was struggling for the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people, which is denied by the government of India for last more than 70 years. We seek the attention of the international community for giving us this right to self-determination so that this region could also be seen in peacefully.
Governor of all parties Hurriyat Conference, Sayyid Faiz Naqshbandi, said Burhan Wani will remain an important part of the liberation struggle of Kashmiris.
And for more on this, we are joined by Manahil Ahmed, our correspondent in Islamabad. So Manahil, please update us about the event being held to observe the 5th martyrdom anniversary of Kashmiri freedom fighter Burhan Wani.
Yes, Pakistan political leaders and Kashmiri Hurriyat leaders have gathered in Islamabad to remember Burhan Wani on his 4th anniversary of martyrdom. They're here to highlight the atrocities committed by Indian forces in occupied Valley, which include custodial killings, torture, rape, disappearances, and the use of pellet guns, and many more. They're here to reaffirm their commitment to the Kashmiris for the fight and for their struggle of freedom. And they're also calling on the global community to fulfill their promise and to grant the people of Kashmir the right to self-determination, which is long overdue now.
Manahil, thank you for the updates. Now moving on, Afghan forces have retaken control of a western provincial capital stormed by the Taliban a day earlier. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said hundreds of fresh troops have been redeployed to the region. It says some fighting continued on the fringes of Kalainau, capital of Badghis province. Kabul said 69 fighters have been killed in fresh operations on the edge of the capital. Yesterday, the Taliban seized key government buildings in the city amid foreign withdrawal. Meanwhile, the group also claims it has conquered the last key district of southern Zabul province. Earlier, the defense chiefs of Turkey and the US discussed the security of Kabul airport. Russia says US withdrawal from Afghanistan means Washington has recognized the failure of its 20-year-long mission. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says terrorist and drug threats have dramatically increased since 2001. During a lecture at a university, he claimed documents indicate the probability that US servicemen were involved in drug trafficking. Lavrov noted Kabul's willingness to form an interim government with the Taliban may lead to a conflict. The foreign minister said ISIS is pulling its forces in the northern Afghanistan provinces that border Russian allies. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim they have reached an agreement with Kabul to establish a mechanism to sort out outstanding issues. A Taliban spokesperson posted a series of tweets after two-day talks between the Taliban and Kabul representatives in Iran. Mohammad Naeem said all efforts to reach a political and peaceful solution must be justified. The US has acknowledged Pakistan's efforts to bring peace and security to Afghanistan. A State Department spokesperson said Washington and Islamabad also share broader counter-terrorist interests. In a press briefing, Ned Price said Pakistan is an important partner across many fronts. Price said the people-to-people contacts between Washington and Islamabad unite the two countries. He noted the regional consensus and support for an Afghan-led peace process is important. The spokesperson said Iran has played a constructive role in hosting the recent intra-Afghan meeting. 3 rockets have landed near the US Embassy in Baghdad in a series of attacks on American assets in the region. The Iraqi army says nearby places in Baghdad's heavily fortified green zone were struck. Sirens blared from the embassy compound, while the anti-rocket system was also activated. This follows a day marked by rocket and drone attacks against bases hosting US forces in Iraq and Syria. The US-led coalition says 2 personnel were injured after 14 rockets targeted an Al-Assad airbase in western Iraq. Reportedly, a far-right Iraqi militant group has claimed responsibility for the attacks. The US says it expects the 7th round of talks with Iran over the 2015 nuclear deal to take place at the right time. In a briefing, State Department spokesman Ned Price did not specify any date or time for the next round. Price said Washington looks forward to engage in the discussions. The talks adjourned on June the 20th as participants returned to their capitals for consultations. Meanwhile, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh says Iran's production of enriched uranium is peaceful. Russia, Iran and Turkey have condemned Israel's military incursions into Syria, calling it a violation of sovereignty. The trio issued a joint statement after the 16th round of the Astana talks in Kazakhstan's capital, Nur-Sultan. They called for the cessation of such attacks that endanger the stability and security in the region. The guarantor nations vowed to continue cooperation in Syria to defeat ISIS and other militant groups. The three nations also called for the early holding of the next round of the Syrian Constitutional Committee meetings in Geneva. Meanwhile, one of the key issues was a mechanism of cross-border aid for Syria and the UN mandate expiring this month. UN Special Envoy for Syria, Gia Pedersen, as well as representatives from Jordan, Lebanon and Iraq are present at the meeting as observers. Haitian security forces have killed 4 suspects in the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse at his home. In televised comments, Haiti's police chief said 2 other mercenaries have been detained. More in this report.
Yesterday, unidentified gunmen shot dead the president and seriously wounded his wife, Martine Moise. The First Lady was flown to Florida for treatment, where she is in a stable but critical condition. Officers are still in combat with some remaining suspects in the nation's capital, Port-au-Prince. Police Chief Leon Charles said 3 policemen who were taken hostage have also been recovered. Haiti's ambassador to Washington, Bochet Edmond, said the gunmen were masquerading as U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agents, a move that would likely have helped them gain entry to Moise's guarded residence. Haiti's government has declared a 2-week state of emergency to help it hunt down the assassins, whom Edmond described as a group of foreign mercenaries and well-trained killers. Acting Prime Minister Claude Joseph said the gunmen spoke English and Spanish, while the majority in Haiti speak French or Haitian Creole. The brazen assassination drew condemnation from the UN Security Council, the US and neighboring Latin American countries. The Dominican Republic has closed its border to neighboring Haiti, where political unrest, gang violence and a growing humanitarian crisis have all plunged the nation deeper into chaos.
Moving on, Jacob Zuma, the former president of South Africa, has handed himself over to the police. A police spokesperson confirmed in a statement that Zuma was in custody in compliance with last week's ruling. Zuma begins his 15 months in jail for contempt of court. He was admitted to the Estcourt Correctional Center in his home province of KwaZulu-Natal. Zuma was sentenced after he failed to attend an inquiry into corruption during his presidential tenure. He has been accused of allowing 3 Indian-born businessmen to plunder state resources and influence government policy. But Zuma and the 3 brothers who fled to Dubai after the former president was ousted deny any wrongdoing. Brazil has reported more than 1,600 COVID-19 deaths and over 54,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and has infected over 185 million others. More in this report.
More than 4 million people around the world have died of the COVID-19, but just 3 countries, the United States, Brazil and India, account for more than a third of all these deaths. Despite a decline in overall cases and deaths in the Americas, last week the region accounted for more than half of global coronavirus fatalities. The UN has warned that efforts for pandemic recovery are threatened because women are being excluded from critical decision-making roles. Meanwhile, in the US, New York City threw a ticker tape parade for essential health workers.
It means a lot because, a lot of times you work and you don't get any thanks, so just being recognized and getting the city to say thank you, it means a whole lot. But really, a lot of us did it not for the thanks, because we wanted to help our communities.
Britain has announced to provide genome sequencing support to Brazil, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria and Pakistan to help track new variants, while the number of cases in Germany has ticked up again after more than 2 months of steady decline. In Spain, the health minister has warned that young people can develop severe infections as Delta variant tears through unvaccinated groups.
We
are seeing an important increase in the accumulated incidence, especially in 2 age groups, 12 to 19 years and 20 to 29 years. With situations linked to end-of-year trips, to stay indoors without respecting the rules that we all have imposed on ourselves, which we also know are those that prevent the spread of the virus.
Over in Asia, as a second wave of infection sweeps through Indonesia, large plots are being cleared to make space for burying COVID-19 victims. Japan is also set to declare a state of emergency for Tokyo from July 12th through August 22nd to contain a fresh surge. The city hosts Olympic Games that run from July 23rd to August 8th. Meanwhile, Australia's New South Wales state has reported its biggest daily rise in locally acquired cases this year.
In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed 24 more lives in the last 24 hours. The health ministry says the country's death toll has reached to 22,493. It reported nearly 1,700 new infections, taking the caseload to over 967,000. The health ministry says more than 910,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. It says there are over 34,000 active cases in the country, while nearly 2,000 are in critical condition. Pakistan is remembering a prominent philanthropist Abdul Sattar Edhi on his 5th death anniversary. Edhi was born on February 28, 1928 in Gujarat and passed away at the age of 88 in Karachi. Edhi established the world's largest volunteer ambulance network and homeless shelters across Pakistan. He won many awards, including the Asian Nobel, the Lenin Peace Prize, and Nishan-e-Imtiaz for his services. Edhi's foundation has provided relief in Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Iran, Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Croatia, Indonesia, and the US. North Koreans are marking the 27th death anniversary of the country's founder, Kim Il-sung. State media reported citizens and military officers in Pyongyang attended a two-day tribute. They laid flowers and bowed in front of Kim's statue on Mansu Hill in Pyongyang. North Koreans also paid respects in front of a mosaic portrait of Kim and his late son, Kim Jong-il. The nation's flag was lowered to half-mast atop Mansudai Assembly Hall. Kim led his country from its founding in 1948 through the Korean War until he died in 1994. He was succeeded by Kim Jong-il, who died in December 2011. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The EU says it will never accept a two-state solution on ethnically split Cyprus. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the bloc is very firm and united on the issue. In a news conference, she said if any state speaks to any EU member, including Cyprus, they speak to Brussels. Cyprus was split in a Turkish invasion in 1974, triggered by a brief Greek-inspired coup into two parts. The government of the south is recognized internationally, but the north is only recognized by Turkey. United Nations-led efforts and talks have failed to unite the island, with the most recent held earlier this year. A fire caused by an explosion on a ship at Dubai's Jebel Ali port has been brought under control. The Dubai Met Office called the blast a normal accident in a container holding flammable material. In a statement, the media office said there are no fatalities or injuries reported. It said the port authorities are taking necessary measures to ensure the normal movement of ships. Jebel Ali Port is Middle East's largest transshipment hub, which handled 13.5 million containers in 2020. Former US President Donald Trump has filed a lawsuit against tech giants Google, Twitter, and Facebook. Trump's social accounts were suspended in January over public safety concerns in the wake of the Capitol riots. Trump says he has been wrongfully censored by the companies. The class action lawsuit filed in federal court in Florida also targets the three companies' CEOs. In a news conference, the former president said the case will prove the censorship is unlawful. He added that it is unconstitutional and completely un-American. Earlier, Trump had also claimed that his election defeat was a result of widespread fraud. And the U.S. rescue services, combing the rubble of a collapsed Miami building, have stopped the search for survivors. In a news conference, Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett said the possibility of someone being alive is near zero. Crews recovered 18 more bodies on Wednesday in the ruins of the condo complex. A total of 54 bodies have been recovered from the ruins of the Champlain Towers South building so far. Florida officials say there is no longer hope that any of the nearly 100 people missing might be found alive.
At this point, we have truly exhausted every option available to us in the search and rescue mission. So today is about beginning the transition to recovery so that we can help to bring closure to the families who've been suffering and waiting for news.
Japanese officials have warned of a possible flooding and landslides as floods hit a city in Hiroshima. Officials have urged residents in Mihara City to be cautious as the Tenjo River has overflowed. Authorities have issued the level 5 alert for more than 8,200 people in 2 districts. The meteorological agency says warm and damp air from the south has been feeding the seasonal rain front. Floodwaters have also covered streets in Takehara City as part of Japan's record heavy rainfall. Earlier on Saturday, rainfall in the seaside resort of Atami killed 7 people. Rescuers are still searching for 27 missing people. And the U.S. tropical storm Elsa is weakening as it passes over northern Florida. Heavy rains and strong winds triggered by the storm caused flooding in the streets of the Florida Straits. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says Elsa has now been downgraded from a Category 1 hurricane. Some coastal countries reported flooding and downed trees, but authorities did not declare any injuries or major structural damage. About 26,000 customers had lost their power across Florida. More than 5 million people die each year globally because of excessively hot or cold conditions. A 20-year study published in The Lancet has found heat-related deaths are on the rise. The study analyzed mortality and weather data in 43 countries between 2000 and 2019. It found that 9.4% of the global deaths each year are attributable to heat or cold exposure. It is equivalent to 74 extra deaths per 100,000 people. The highest heat-related excess death rate was in Eastern Europe, while Sub-Saharan Africa had the highest mortality rate linked to cold temperatures. The study has called for better housing insulation and more solar-powered air conditioning. 4 German tightrope walkers have set a world record by crossing a 2.1 kilometer long and 600 meters high line. The record they have set in a U-shaped valley in Swedish Lapland may prove difficult to beat. More in this report.
Tightrope walking, also known as funambulism, is one of the most extreme of all air sports. In Bulletin Valley, the highliners wore watches with GPS trackers to measure and verify the distance walked between the 2 anchors. Quirin Heatrelated was the first to make it without falling and was followed by his compatriots Lucas Ermler, Ruben Langer and Friday Cohen.
This is hard because it's really exposed. It's 600 meters high. It's 2,150 meters, and it's really windy here sometimes. And just getting everyone here is really far out. To get it all organized, it's been a major challenge.
Bulletin is located just outside Abisko National Park inside the Arctic Circle and is a popular hiking destination. At this time of the year, the sun does not set, giving the highliners plenty of time to fry for the record. It took the team 2 days of hard work to rig the line, always mindful of the weather.
This place, Bulletin, is for me an iconic place and a very beautiful landmark of this whole area. And you know, when I started looking at bigger projects, I saw a picture of Laputan. I haven't seen Laputan in decades, and just when I saw it, I knew it had to be rigged and crossed.
Others on the team also tried to break the record and failed, but they just wanted to test to walk on the line. Even with a safety harness tethered to the rope, highlining can still be quite dangerous. It is a team sport, and a world record is shared among all the members, including the ones rigging the rope.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Another business update. European stocks have retreated amid a more cautious turn in global sentiment. Italy's FTSE MIB dropped over 2% to lead the losses. CAC 40 in Paris slipped close to 2%. Frankfurt's DAX and FTSE in London shed more than 1% each. The pan-European stock 600 also fell more than 1%, with basic resources dropping over 2%. Pakistan have lost early wickets in their first one-day international of the three-match series against England in Cardiff. The hosts won the toss and elected to field first. And for further updates on sports, we have Munif Hamid with us.
Thank you. Now let's start with the sports news, and most importantly, Pakistan meet England for their first one-day international in Cardiff. Pakistani batsman Haris Sohail has been ruled out from the tour due to a hamstring injury. An MRI revealed a grade 3 tear injury, which he picked up during a training session in Derby. Earlier, England named an entirely new 18-man squad after 7 members tested positive for COVID-19. Ben Stokes will captain a side that could feature up to 9 debutants. The 3-match ODI series will be followed by 3 T20 internationals on July 16th, 18th and 20th. Now, for more on this, we have with us Lina Aziz, a cricket expert. Now, thank you, Lina, for being with us on Indus News. Now, 9 debutants for the England side, facing a side which has just recently finished up a PSL Super Tour in Abu Dhabi. I think the pressure is going to be on the English side.
Yeah, well, you could say that, but the pressure is going to be on Pakistan also, because some of these county players which have replaced the English player who are, suffering from COVID-19, in fact, the whole squad, are pretty experienced. County cricket is at a very high level, and certain players like Lewis Gregory and, Duckett and players like David Malan, all these are very, and Wentz, these are very experienced players, and they have performed even at the PSL. In fact, some of them have made their names at the PSL. So it's not going to be an easy thing for Pakistan. For instance, I tell you, if they bat first, the English, and they put up a score of 300 at Cardiff, so it won't be easy, because they've got some good bowlers in Saqib Mahmood and, a couple of other good bowlers who are pretty experienced at county level and have played certain leagues. So it wouldn't be like, I can't say the pressure is going to be on England. I think the English boys, the new ones, the ones making the debut, are going to be pretty relaxed. There's Zach Crawley, who got a double 100 against Pakistan in test matches. So it's going to be evenly, I think it's going to be pretty even Stevens as far as pressure is concerned.
But Lina, let's talk about the conditions. I think the conditions are going to be a bit tricky. We saw the PSL when it was being conducted in Karachi in Pakistan. The conditions were different there, and we also saw the players obviously playing the PSL when the PSL tournament shifted to Abu Dhabi. The conditions were disturbing the players a bit too. So the conditions, do you think is going to play a major role? And do you think the players of the Pakistani cricket team are going to be a bit disturbed in playing new conditions, brand new conditions?
Yeah, well, English conditions are always difficult, especially for the batsmen. They're always bowling friendly. They're overcast skies. Cardiff is pretty much in the north. So, there is going to be wind, the wind factor. It might be cold. So there is going to be movement for the bowlers, sideways movement, which is known as swing, So there is going to be swing, which is always trouble for the batsmen. As far as the bowlers are concerned, Pakistani bowlers are going to get a lot of help also because we have got a few seam bowlers, swing bowlers, so it's not going to be difficult for the bowlers. But yes, the batsmen always find it difficult in England because there is lateral movement, sideways movement. So we will have to assess, when the toss takes place, how much movement there is, what the pitch is like, if it's got grass on it. But in England, there is always going to be the overcast factor. The skies make a lot of difference in England. That is why the English conditions are difficult. But then Pakistan's got some high-class batsmen, an in-form batsman in Rizwan, in Babar Azam, one of the best in the world these days, so they shouldn't worry about that so much. And they're not facing a high-class attack. I mean, this is, if anything, a B-class attack in England, because as we know, the main team is now not playing because of COVID. So this is a B-class attack, but there's still got to be a little wary about the overhead conditions.
Yeah, just on that now, England have brought up a brand new side to play against Pakistan, an 18-member squad, brand new, and they also have 9 debutants. So do we have any information about who those 9 debutants are and whether they have been picked up from the English A side?
Well, most of these guys are picked up from, the county circuit. I spoke about Ben Ducking and Saqib Mahmood, who's played in Pakistan. Zach Crawley hasn't played a one-day international, so he's going to be a debutant. There are a few young players. The wicket-keeper is new. But these are players where they have accumulated under Ben Stokes from the counties. They have picked up performers from the counties, people who are on the fringe of making an English debut. So, this was a God-gifted opportunity for the English to try these young players, because the whole team is now suffering. Not the entire team is not suffering, but most of them are suffering from COVID, so they're not, the whole team is now a new one. So they got a brilliant opportunity, but these are experienced players, in and out, in and out they play in the county circuit, which is a pretty high-class circuit. If you compare it to, say, the Pakistani domestic, the standard would be totally different. I mean, the pitches they play on, the money they get, these players, even if they don't play any international cricket, they can have a beautiful lifestyle, because in the counties they get a lot of money. And because of the money, the standard is very good. The ECB looks after the standard. So this is not going to, these debutants are not going to be, some easy praise for Pakistan.
And lastly, Lena, very quickly, how do you see today's ODI match between Pakistan and England? Who do you think is the favorite, keeping in mind all these things that have happened?
Well, most certainly Pakistan are the favorites because they are at full strength. Only Haris Sohail is injured as usual. I mean, he's always injured. But of course, England are going to be a new side, younger side. So they're going to have a lot of pressure as far as performing in this ODI is going to concern. Pakistan, of course, shouldn't feel much pressure. Therefore, they should be the favorites. But then, cricket is a funny game, as they say. It depends who plays well on that day, who performs well on that day, who's more focused. So I feel Pakistan the favorite, but it's not going to be an easy game.
It's not going to be an easy game, and Lina Aziz has termed Pakistan as the favourites for today's ODI match against England. Thank you very much, Lina Aziz, joining us on Indus News. But jumping on to football now, where England beat Denmark 2-1 at Wembley Stadium to reach the final of the Euro 2020. Harry Kane extra time goal helped England mark their first semi-final win since the 1966 World Cup. England had to come from behind as Simon Kjaer's own goal cancelled out Mikhail Damsgaard's free kick in the first half. The home side were on top throughout, but struggled to break down the battling Denmark defence. England were awarded a penalty in the 103rd minute. Raheem Sterling went down with minimum contact, allowing Captain Kane to decide the match. Denmark were unhappy with the decision, which was checked by VAR. England will now clash with Italy for the title on Monday. All right, so now for more on this, we have with us James Rove now. James, thank you very much for your time. So let's just talk about the VAR decision, which caused a massive outbreak on social media. How do you see the decision?
Well, first and foremost, great to speak to you all again. I hope everybody's keeping well. I think this decision really reiterates the fact that VAR does come down to interpretation in terms of studying the images to make sure that you make the right decision. And if you think back to the time where we didn't have VAR, it was always the interpretation of the referee, for example, of a linesman. In this case, you have people in a separate area. So I think it comes down to interpretation, really.
Right, and also talking about the decision, do you think the VAR technology in itself is a bit doubtful? Because we've seen a big outrage after the decision.
I think it doesn't help the way that different countries use it in different ways. If you look at other countries, they might have the referee who goes to study the monitor himself. Some referees would want to go and check that they see with their own eyes on a small monitor what's happened. Some rely on their colleagues who are in a separate area. So obviously, it's not one size fits all. It is very much interpretation, and timing is very important, and especially the application of the rules.
Right. Also, James, now, England has made history, obviously winning in a semi-final win since 1966. How do you see the final? Obviously, England must be under pressure, and they must be high in hopes to win the Euro 2020.
Well, it's uncharted territory, really. It's once in a lifetime for the country, for the people, for the fans. We've never been here before. We've never been to a European Championship final before, so there are going to be nerves, but we're playing in our own national stadium in front of our own fans. It really is once in a lifetime. The players and the manager and the backroom staff have to realise that the chance that's going to come on Sunday may never come round again, so they have to take it with both hands.
Definitely, they would take it with both hands. Now, if we are comparing the teams, the English team seems a bit more experienced rather than the young Italian side. Do you think there must be an advantage, obviously, when we talk about the experience? And do you think England have an upper hand on the Italian side?
I think it's a very even game. I think if you look at the backroom staff of Mancini and Vialli at Italy, as well as their other coaches, they're highly experienced. And the players as well, this is a team that's unbeaten in more than 30 matches and also hasn't won a European Championship since 1968. I think it will be a very even game. I think it will go to extra time, and I think it will be decided by penalties.
Right, so it's going to be decided with penalties. This is your say. Now, let's compare the teams. Who do you think is going to be the main player to be watchful for from speaking the sides of Italy and England?
I think in the case of Italy, I think Federico Chiesa, I think he can really make a difference. His shooting accuracy is marvellous, as proved against Spain and against Austria. And I think with England, I think Raheem Sterling, he's had a wonderful tournament. He's been a constant thorn in the side of many teams, lots of pace as well and trickery. So I think on the Italian side, I think Federico Chiesa, and on the England side, I think Raheem Sterling.
Right, James, you've already mentioned that it is going to be an even match. Even though for our audience, for the football lovers, which team do you think is favourite?
I think England the favourites. I think England are the favourites. I think playing in our home stadium in front of our own people in this once in a lifetime opportunity. This is not on neutral ground. This is not in a separate country. This is in our own backyard, so to speak, in the capital of our country. So I would make England slight favourites in that respect.
Well, let's just see and wait and watch whether England is going to make history or not. James Rove, thank you very much for giving your precious time to Indus News. So, fans, let's see whether England is going to make history or not. Now, let's just jump on to tennis, where Roger Federer has been knocked out of Wimbledon by Poland. Hubert Hurkacz, the 18th-ranked Polish player, beat the former number 1 6-3, 7-6 and 6-0 in the quarter-final. The Swiss star made 31 unforced errors, while Hurkacz made 12. This was Federer's first straight-set loss since an opening round exit against Mario Andrich in 2002. Earlier defending champion Novak Djokovic brushed aside Martin Fucsovics to qualify for the semis. Ukac will now face Italy's Matteo Berrettini, while Djokovic will meet Denis Shapovalov next. Now, China says it will work with the global community to present a simple and safe Winter Olympics and Paralympics. China's envoy to the United Nations, Chen Shu, said the grand event has been receiving much attention from the winter sports lovers. Chen added the event will be a grand one and a stage for fair competition for global athletes. He said Beijing has been determined to implement a strategy for national fitness to improve people's health.
Well, Munib Hamid, thank you very much for the sports updates. And it's time to take a look at the weather updates from around the globe. And for that, we have Naila with us.
Thank you. Now let's begin with Abu Dhabi, where it is around 43 degrees Celsius and it will be bright and sunny, so keep yourselves protected from the heat. And Amsterdam, the weather sounds idle compared to Abu Dhabi, where it is a solid 22 degrees Celsius with pleasant rainfall. While in Ankara, the weather will rise to 30 degrees Celsius with some partial sun. Now down under in Auckland, the weather is around 13 degrees Celsius with some sun, so it will be lovely and enjoyable. Although if you are traveling to Bangkok, you will most definitely need an umbrella because there are thunderstorms in the forecast with temperatures rising to 32 degrees Celsius. Now moving towards Beijing, there will be some partial sun with temperatures at 33 degrees Celsius. Now heading towards Lebanon, Beirut will have some sunny weather at 29 degrees Celsius, while Berliners will have to deal with some heavy thunderstorms. Cairo will be experiencing some sun with temperatures at 37 degrees Celsius. Now down under in Canberra, the winter weather is keeping temperatures at bay at 11 degrees Celsius with some clouds. Now if you are traveling to Islamabad, lather up on sunscreen because it is bright, it is sunny and extremely hot, so fair warning guys. Now moving on to Jakarta, there will be hot weather, but there will be some clouds, so make sure the sun's harsh rays stay at bay. Over to you.
Thank you, Naila, for the weather updates. And that brings us to the end of the news bulletin. For further updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.